There's a hidden lake near my house in Parsonfield, Maine. I fish there all the time. It's private. No roads or houses. So I'm always the only one. I even leave my kayak, leaning against a big tree, covered up rather than lugging it back and forth. It's heavy enough that the wind doesn't take it, and the cover keeps critters out. One warm summer evening, I'd been out for an hour and already had a few trout in the cooler. It was dusk, the light disappearing behind the trees. I was about to head in when I heard sounds from the shore. I turned and saw someone standing at the water's edge, tipping a barrel over, pouring something into the lake. "Excuse me, what are you doing?" I yelled. The person looked up, then bolted into the woods, leaving the barrel to keep pouring. I paddled closer. The liquid was dark red, though in the dim light, I couldn't be 100% sure. My gut clenched. I'm a big nature guy, and pollution makes me sick, but this felt different. I didn't feel comfortable here anymore. I decided to leave and report it to the Department of Environmental Protection. I paddled back to my spot and pulled my gear out of the kayak. As I was pulling the cover over it, I heard a single, sharp snap from the woods nearby, like someone stepping on a twig. I froze. I was about to yell, "Who's there?" but thought better of it. I covered the kayak faster than I ever have. Didn't even bother leaning it on the tree, just left it on the ground. I grabbed my gear and cooler and walked fast, back to the road to my house. It was only a couple of minutes, but I kept looking over my shoulder the entire time. Sure, someone was right behind me. I dumped my gear in the shed, went inside, and locked the door. I've never locked it so fast. I was genuinely spooked. I rinsed the trout and put them in the fridge, then heated up some leftovers. Just as the microwave beeped, someone knocked on the front door. My blood ran cold. It confirmed everything. Who else would be knocking this late? My lights were on. My car was in the drive. They knew I was home. I had the shades closed, so they couldn't see in. They knocked again, louder. The microwave beeped again, and I'm sure they heard it through the cracked windows. A moment later, a knock came on the window. A man's voice said, "Excuse me. I think you saw me at the lake earlier." I'd just like to explain myself. No way was I opening that door. Stalking me home meant he was dangerous. He knocked on the window again, yelling hello. He was getting more aggressive. "Yo, leave, or I'm calling the police," I yelled back. The man responded, suddenly calm, "Sir, if you could just open the front door, I'll explain." I repeated my threat. I didn't hear his voice again. I shut and locked every window in the house and turned on the AC. I made a report to the non-emergency police number, detailing the barrel and the man coming to my house. I also filed an online report with the DEP. Making those reports made me feel a little better, and I tried to go to sleep. Thank God, I'm a light sleeper. Around 2 a.m., I heard a crash from downstairs. I sprang out of bed and grabbed my Glock from the closet. I heard quiet footsteps coming up the creaky wooden stairs. I got behind my dresser, aimed the loaded Glock at the door. My room is closest to the stairs. I heard slow creeping. Then the doorknob slowly turned. The door pushed open. A man's silhouette entered the room. I flicked on the lamp and screamed, "Get on the ground now." He raised his hands. He had a small blade in one of them. He seemed to be motioning for me to calm down. "Drop it," I yelled. He just said, "I'm leaving," turned, and bolted downstairs. I yelled at him to stop, but he called my bluff. I heard the front door slam. I ran downstairs, locked the door again, and called 911. My living room window was shattered, glass everywhere. I kept my gun trained on that broken window until the cops showed up. I explained the non-emergency report I'd made earlier. I went with 2 of the officers back to the lake. We spent 20 minutes walking around in the dark, but the barrel was gone. The man must have gone back for it. I gave them the best description I could. A short, bearded white man, receding hairline, glasses, wearing a black flannel shirt and black pants. After the police left, I stayed in the living room all night with my gun, watching TV. There was no way I was sleeping at dawn. My brothers came over. My brother Dale stayed at the house, while my other brother and I went to Home Depot for a new window. Dale stayed with me for a few nights until things cooled down. My theory isn't so wild that barrel was full of human remains, probably dissolved in acid. Why else? Follow me home and break in to murder me. I knew if I'd opened that door, I'd be dead. I've been fishing my whole life. I'm almost 60 now. And even though my kids are grown and the house is quiet, I can't think of any other way. I'd rather spend my time. Sometimes I miss throwing a football with my boys, but that's not in the cards anymore. I usually fish with my college pals, but more often than not, I go at it alone. This was one of those times. I haven't left upstate New York in 15 years. Why would I? We have the best fishing. It was mid-April, just after the ice out, and I wanted a secluded spot. I picked a small, nondescript lake in the middle of nowhere and drove up an hour before sunrise. I unstrapped my kayak, paddled to the middle, and watched the sky start to light up. It was chilly, but I've got tough skin. This felt like home. I wouldn't trade it for anything. The sun was just about to break, so I started gearing up. I was going for largemouth bass, moving to the edge of the weed beds with my go-to-wacky rig. Just as I was about to cast, I noticed something strange movement across the lake. I figured it was just another fisherman, but I grabbed my birdwatching binoculars from my knapsack just to be sure. I looked through them. 3 figures in dark, hooded clothes were at the edge of the lake. They were digging. I kept watching. They finished the hole, but instead of putting something in, they pulled things out. I couldn't make out what. Then, one by one, they started tossing the items into the lake. Splash, splash, splash. Something was definitely wrong. A wave of fear hit me. These people looked dangerous. Thankfully, they started to leave, disappearing into the woods without ever seeing me. I thought about just leaving it alone, but I couldn't. I waited until they were gone, and then, shaking, I paddled my kayak over to their spot. I got there and started fishing. Only this time, I wasn't fishing for bass. I fished for an hour with no luck. I needed to try something else. I remembered my depth checker back in the car. I was determined. I paddled back to shore, grabbed it from my Volvo, and paddled back out. I was sweating now. I poked around the bottom, nothing but squishy mud. Then, thunk. Something hard. Metal. I noted the spot, grabbed my rod, and swapped the wacky rig for the largest hook I had. I let the line out slow, my finger feeling every movement. 50 years of fishing experience went into this one catch. I felt a slight resistance. It hit something. I moved the line around, trying to snag it. After a minute, the line tugged hard. I was snagged. I reeled in slow, careful not to lose it. What I pulled out of the water had me shivering. I stared at the black 9mm handgun dangling from my hook. Those thugs had thrown a gun in the lake. I didn't feel safe anymore. I didn't bother looking for the other items. I carefully swung the gun into my kayak, trying not to touch it, and hightailed it out of there. As soon as I hit dry land, I called the police. They launched a full investigation. I insisted on watching. I had to know what was down there. They recovered more unsettling stuff. A keychain with 7 keys, a cloth full of old foreign coins, and the eeriest thing, a locket. It was waterlogged. The pictures inside were just faded blurs. The cops said they'd call if they connected the dots. They never called. But the story didn't end there. One night, I don't remember how many days later, I heard voices in my front yard. That's the car. I know it. Then, snooping. I heard multiple people circling my house. They never knocked, just circled, and then left. I have no idea if it was the same people, or if I'm being watched every time I leave my house. I called the police again, but nothing came of it. I still have so many questions. Why bury those items? Just to dig them up and throw them in the lake. It was the strangest thing that's ever happened to me. While fishing, I go through phases with hobbies. I'll obsess over something for a year, then find something new. In the summer of 2022, I was big into fishing. My family has a shore house about an hour away, right on the water, with a lagoon and a small Boston whaler. My friends and I would take frequent trips there to fish and just chill. That October, my two friends, Kevin and Arian, decided to hit the shore house for a weekend to catch striper. Since they're abundant in the fall, Kevin was an avid fisherman. He was the big reason I got into the whole fishing craze. Unfortunately, our boat was out for maintenance, so we'd have to fish off the beach and piers. This was no problem. Kevin had all the gear for it. We got together on a Friday afternoon, and I drove us down. We fished during the day off different piers along the inlet, but by nightfall, only Kevin had caught anything a small base. Nothing exciting. Bummed about our luck, we decided to stay up late and fish off the beach. Kevin said he knew a good spot about 15 minutes away. It took us down a desolate road, woods on both sides, which opened up into a small gravel parking area. Kevin said we should take everything we needed. Since we planned on staying up to catch the sunrise, we walked about 5 minutes down a path that opened up into a massive beach. We set up camp, beach chairs, a speaker, and 2 coolers, one with ice for fish, one with snacks, water, and beers. Kevin brought these massive fishing rods ideal for beach fishing, rod holders to hammer into the sand, and little bells that connect to the rod tips to let you know if you get a bite. We all cast our rods, cracked a couple of beers, and played the waiting game. Within 2 hours, each of us had caught decent-sized fish, which definitely lightened our spirits. We were having a great time blasting music, knowing no one was around on this deserted beach. Conversation. Arian stopped talking, lowered the music, and jolted his head to the left. He asked if we heard that. We replied, heard what? He concentrated for a second, and then said, I heard someone yell something. We thought he was joking, but he insisted he heard a yo or a hey. It seemed unlikely given we were on a hidden beach at Avon. He forgot about it, and our conversation resumed. But it definitely made us more aware. A couple of minutes later, I noticed something out of the corner of my eye. There was something on the beach in the distance. The others noticed it, too. As it got closer, we realized what it was. A person walking towards us. We grew silent and turned off the music. He came right up to us. It was a middle-aged white man, maybe 40 or 50, wearing a dark blue jacket with a hat and hood up. The way he walked up was sketchy, and he had this intimidating look. What's up? Kind of awkwardly. He just eyed us down for like 10 seconds and then said in a low voice, What are you boys up to? It was pretty apparent what we were up to. We're fishing, Kevin said. He let out some grunt and nodded. He didn't say a word after that, just stood there looking at us. Then the rods, then the water. We shot each other looks, thinking he was going to try and rob us, though there was no way he could have taken on the 3 of us. The bell on one of our rods broke the silence. We got one, I said, kind of directed at everyone, but mostly at the weird guy, hoping to get a normal response. I walked over to the rod and reeled in a small striper. When I went back to unhook the fish, the man had turned around and left. We watched his dark silhouette fade away. We made sure we had all our stuff and just talked about how odd that encounter was. He left without harming us, so we figured he was just some weirdo who was now gone. We kept the music off, just to be cautious, and cracked a few more beers. At one point, while staring into the horizon, I thought I heard something in the distance. It took me a second to realize what it was, but when I did, my heart dropped. It was a car alarm. I knew it was mine. It was the only car in that lot, and there were no houses for miles. We started panicking and decided to run back to the car, leaving all of our stuff behind. It took us a couple of minutes to get there, and when we did, I was completely distraught. My tires had been slashed, and my driver's side window was shattered. I got on my phone with the police immediately. The operator asked if I knew who may have done it, and we told her about the sketchy guy. She asked if I knew where he went. Just as I said no, we heard rustling in the woods around us. My heart rose into my throat. I felt trapped. We frantically ran like 200 yards down the road and hid in the trees. I told the operator this, and she said to stay hidden and keep quiet. Within 10 minutes, we saw 2 cop cars speed past with their lights on. We ran back to the car and saw 3 officers searching the area. Multiple things had been stolen, including my wallet, some cash from the glove box, and the remainder of Kevin's fishing gear. They found a large knife lying on the ground nearby, which they took for evidence. I told them the whole story, my adrenaline still pumping. They said we were smart to run away and hide, as it's very likely this man meant us harm. Those words made me appreciate my life so much more. The officers made us feel safe and were nice enough to help us pack up the equipment and carry it back. They took down our information and gave us a ride back to the house. We stayed up all night, reflecting on what had just happened that morning. Aryan got us a ride up north, and I picked up my car from the shop a few days later. To this day, this is by far the most frightening experience I've ever had. What was supposed to be a normal fishing trip became a terrifying ordeal that cost me hundreds of dollars. I never got a call back from the police, meaning that guy is probably still out there. Needless to say, I gave up fishing as a hobby and haven't touched it since.